for Rebel News, and today we are following breaking news out of Quebec. Premier François Legault has announced that he is resigning and will step down once his party selects a successor.
Pour le bien de mon parti et surtout pour le bien du Québec, j'annonce aujourd'hui que je vais quitter mon poste de premier ministre du Québec. Je vais rester en place le temps que mon parti désigne un remplaçant ou une remplaçante.
What's particularly interesting is that just last December, François Legault, who is also the founder of the Coalition Avenir Québec, said he intended to stay on and lead the party into the 2026 provincial election.
Je suis allé prendre une marche dans la neige ce matin, puis j'ai décidé que je reste.
And now, barely a month later, he is announcing his resignation. Is this decision linked to the CAC's declining numbers in the poll, or to the recent resignations of several MNA and cabinet ministers? This situation mirrors what we saw at the federal level with the Liberal Party of Canada just ahead of an election when Justin Trudeau was pushed aside and replaced by Mark Carney, presented as the so-called savior from Donald Trump. And we have to say it works. Today, we will be discussing not only this breaking news, but also François Legault's political legacy. To do that, I'm joined by Nicolas Gagnon, Quebec's director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation.
Well, there's definitely a feeling of déjà vu that many people might feel at this point in Quebec because it literally happened 1 year ago at this very same moment of the year when we remember that Chrystia Freeland resigned just before delivering our fall economic update. And then we had Trudeau resigning, I think, on January 6th. So now we have François Legault that is resigning from his premier position on January 14th, just a few weeks after his own health minister, Mr. Christian Dubé, resigned himself after the whole debate about the Bill 2 in Quebec. So there's definitely clearly the unpopularity of François Legault is one of the main driver of this decision. Although a few weeks ago, again, he was constantly saying in the media that he would be staying and fight for a third mandate. So yes, at this point, it feels like we're seeing the very same situation, although I don't think it's going to be the same outcome because we still don't know who's going to be the successor of François Legault. We don't know if it's going to be coming from inside of the party or from someone outside in either some corporate job or another level of government. So we don't know for now. But one thing is certain is that we don't know what's going to be happening by the end of the year. Is there going to be a budget in March? Are we going in election in spring? Is there going to be, or is it still going to be happening in October? There are so many possibilities, but one thing is certain: Premier Legault will leave behind him quite a controversial legacy on some different issues. Some of it might be accepted both from a taxpayer's perspective, such as his tax cut on the first two tax brackets that was delivered in July 2023. That was something we fought for at the CTF. There's also the harmonization of the scholar tax that he delivered in 2019, and also the end of the gas floor mechanism that was also delivered this year, in 2025. So there's a few things that he did for taxpayers that maybe some people forget, but were very important to give the relief that Quebec taxpayers so much need. But on the other hand, we know that we have lost complete control over the government expenses and overall the public finances. We have massive deficits. We have a debt that has increased from 200 billion to 276 billion between the moment that Legault entered office and is leaving office. The cost of the debt is now up to $10 billion a year. We have increased the number of bureaucrats by over 100,000 positions over the last 7 years. So clearly there's a lot of issues with the Quebec government at this point, with the spendings, with the public finance. We also got our first credit downgrade in over 30 years in Quebec just last year. So clearly, Legault will be remembered for a long time, not necessarily for the best reasons. He also stood a lot on many immigration issues, language issues, secularism, Bill 21 and such, that are not things I'm going to comment, but are still part of his legacy that people may appreciate or not. But from a taxpayer's perspective, from the one of today and the future taxpayers, clearly his legacy is not a positive one.
Yeah, I want to talk about it because there is a lot of English Canadian who are not following Quebec politics and they are not aware of the scandals that were just piling up one after another one. We talk about Northvolt, we talk about Medicago, we talk about the Blue Basket, or the recent one, SAC-Click, that a lot of people are not aware of what was happening in Quebec.
Oh, and I can understand why. I mean, it's politics in Quebec is already very hard to follow. It's even harder to follow in French. But that being said, yes, we had our own very share of scandals over the last years. The Legault government made a mission, gave themselves a mission to create a new industry in Quebec that we call in French the filière électrique, or the in French, in English, I don't know how that would translate. Maybe the EV industry. So basically, to create this whole ecosystem of the different companies that would be invested in Quebec, thanks to the help of taxpayers' money that would be used as a way to attract those companies to massive subsidy package. We have seen it, different example of Ford coming in Bécancour. We had the whole issue with Northvolt, where we almost lost a couple of hundred of millions of dollars. Now we were able to retrieve some of it, but the Quebec government was ready to put into it up to $3 billion that we could have lost it all, but thank God this entire project never saw the light of the day. But we also have Nemaska Lithium, in which the Quebec government has put over $1 billion to this point. We have the Lyon Electric issues, where I think that people from other provinces, I think from New Brunswick, might be, if they had any issue with their scholar buses, it might be because it was produced by Lyon Electric, and that alone cost over $200 million to Quebec taxpayers, and that's without the entire issue for investors who lost a lot of money because they had the impression that the government was doing something right with taxpayers' money, and in the end, everyone lost it. So yes, those scandals have been going on for many years. It felt like during the first mandate of the Legault government, they were, I don't know, it seems like they were in control of everything. And surprisingly, many people were reassured by the way that the pandemic was handled in Quebec. So I guess that was one of the many reasons why they gave the CAQ a second mandate. But now it's clearly off the table, at least until we know who's going to replace Legault. But the second mandate was full of scandals and controversies, many resignation from M&As recently because of the unbalanced budget, because of the different scandals with SAC-Click, where for people who don't know, again, the SAAQ is our DMV in Quebec. They were in charge of a digital transition, a new program that would be apparently making things easier for drivers to renew their driving license and registration. And overall, it was supposed to cost about $600 million. Now it's set to cost $1.1 billion, and it's a complete mess. I mean, my own sister works in a car dealership, and she tells me that every weeks or 2 weeks there's a problem with the system and it doesn't work. So, and I mean that's just for her, so I can imagine that this is kind of happening over the entire province. But overall, yes, to complete the whole loop, I think that Quebecers really wanted some change from the current government, and Legault was not necessarily ready to face the heat that was currently accumulating in Quebec. So that explains why he might be resigning. And I guess that many people around him in the CAQ government is hoping that with his resignation, there's going to be a better someone that will probably bring back the credibility to the CAQ government. Again, we don't know who that's going to be, and I don't know about any rumors. But yeah, there's a lot to be said about the François Legault and the CAQ's legacy.
Because I don't know if you heard The speech that he gave this morning is resignation speech, but it seems that it was kind of pressure to leave. Why I'm saying that? It's because I think it was in December, late December. He actually said that it would be there for the next election. It will be there in 2026. And just about a month later, is resigning from his position. So do you think that there is some internal pressure that push him to leave the party and resignate from his position?
Most certainly, because we had heard before that the many M&As wanted him out at some point, and the reason why we know that is because there is I think Suzanne Poulet, if I remember well her name, and there is also the previous M&A in Abitibi that I think it's Pierre Dubuc. So those are just the two examples on top of my head of M&As that literally said out loud that they wanted to change either from Legault's current way to manage things or just to change leadership overall. But yet they got kicked out of the caucus because they said that. So I guess there was some other pressure from the inside, pressure that Legault could not be able to file out publicly, and obviously the polls that have been published over the last couple of months has just been confirming that the only way for him to maybe try to save his legacy is by going out the door first and trying to find a better leadership to lead his party, and that's the biggest issue because for the Liberal Party of Canada or for the Conservative Party of Canada, for example, the leader themselves are not the founders of the party. Like Carney is not the one who put the party together, and Justin Trudeau was not the one who put it together. So there's some organization inside that could, donors at some point could make pressure and all that. With the CAC, it's different because Legault is literally the one who brought it to life, right? So he would only go out on his own term. Now I don't know what are those terms. I don't know who's going to succeed him and how the race is going to be going on for the next week. I guess that we're going to have another discussion when this whole leadership race is either going on or finish. But clearly, I think that like anybody else, and that's my own guess. I'm maybe right or maybe wrong, but there's nothing that changed more your mind than a discussion with your family at Christmas. And I think that maybe that's what happened overall. He basically looked at what happened over the last year and what's going to be happening over 2026 with the election looming in the polls, and he said, maybe it's time for me to go. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's something else.
Because some people in the English Canada doesn't know, but now we will have an election with many new leaders because the Liberal Party of Quebec have changed their leader because of what it seems to be alleged corruption in the funding of the leadership race. We have a new leader also for the Quebec City there. And now we have new leaders for the CAC. How do you see the next election in Quebec with as much new leaders in one time?
It's a very good question. I think it's going to be a very interesting election to follow, and I'm looking forward to see what's going to be the Liberal Party of Quebec with a new leader. There's a well, for now we all think it's probably going to be Charles Milliard, the new leader. So personally, I still don't know where he is sitting on different issues. So I'm looking forward to hear about that and if he actually changed the perspective of the Liberal Party. I think also that the fact that we are changing that the CAC, sorry, that Legault resigned today, is going to force the Parti Québécois to have a different strategy overall. So maybe we're going to see more of their proposition instead than just a discussion about a potential referendum. Because in the end, if the referendum doesn't work, well, the PQ gonna have to govern the province. So we would like to know more about their policies, and it seems like most media are not really focusing on that. So I'm actually eager to see more of it. Same for Quebec Solidaire. Now they currently have Ruba Gazal. It's a different. It's also a change from the previous leader that they sent. It's not Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois anymore. So I'm looking forward to see how people will perceive that during the election. Éric Duhem also has basically made the Conservative Party from a young party that had difficulty to be reaching the 0.5% support in the polls to now during in 2022 they obtained up to 13% of the vote, also although they had no elected MNA, but now they're currently sitting at 16%. So he has been able to increase his party, just like Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon with the PQ. They started with very little, and they have been able to increase and maintain their support. So I think that the Conservative Party of Quebec is going to be a big surprise as well in some areas like Beauce and Quebec City. The Parti Québécois is also expected to perform well in the region outside of Montreal. So yeah, the big question is who's going to be or yeah, what kind of politician is going to be Charles Milliard and who's going to be the successor to François Legault are like the two last items that we need to know by the beginning of the election. Those are the two big mysteries for now. But I think that the focus of the next election should be the taxpayers or the affordability crisis and how to help taxpayers, and also how to bring back order in public finances in Quebec. Those should be the two main themes for the incoming election.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you can and if you want, you can chip in at rebelfieldreports.com to help us to continue our independent journalism because, as you know, we don't receive any money from the government. So thanks in advance for your support.